I think that the issue, though, that was now developing in the Security Council was that Dr. Blix did indeed seem to think more weeks and months would be helpful. And because nothing had been found so far in the inspections process, other than the Al-Samud missiles, which were being dealt with, that confirmed the intelligence picture that had been presented over the previous months, the people did feel there was a need for more time. It wasn't an unreasonable request. So was there a risk that by putting down the second resolution at this point, that it appeared as if you were trying to curtail this process because of the demands of the military planning?
It was more actually, so long as the other way around, that what we were trying to do was to say, how do you resolve what on any basis is a somewhat indistinct picture being painted by Blix, because it's clear they are not cooperating fully, but they're giving a little bit of cooperation. I come back to the fact, of course, the only cooperation that was being given was because of this huge military force sitting on Saddam's doorstep. What I tried to do was to find a way, and that's why I did this with Blix himself. I mean, we sat down, we had a conversation. I think actually we had a long conversation on the phone. I remember Jack Straw was very much involved in this. We were, Jeremy Greenstock, I think, at the UN was very much involved in this. We tried to construct these tests, and the most important one to me was this ability to get the scientists out of the country.
And it seems to me that the issue, and indeed, this was a very serious effort, but you didn't have the time, because if you were going to do that, maybe it would have taken until April, maybe until May, but the sense within the Security Council was that this was indeed a way that could go forward, but that the view of the United States is that you couldn't have much more time. Jonathan Powell told us that you asked for more time and you weren't given it.
The reason for constructing the resolution was to try and get us into the situation of having more time. The problem, however, was this. I mean, we could have got the resolution together. And I was having discussions late into the night every evening with, I think it was the Chileans and the Mexicans, and I was speaking to the French, and we were speaking to everybody. We were trying desperately to get this last route out. And there were other things that were being talked about at the time. I had I'm going into the details of it, but there was a group of Arab countries that came to us, and they were quite keen, I think, on actually, if we got a fresh resolution, pushing Saddam out. So there were ways, even then, where we could have tried to resolve this. The problem was, it became very clear that whatever their position had been in November 2002, the position, particularly of France and Russia, had really changed. They had decided they weren't going to agree any new resolution that had in it any authority for action if Saddam didn't comply. And the reason why that then made our position very difficult was that if you tabled another resolution, but said even if he doesn't comply with that resolution, we'll come back and have yet another discussion.
I think we probably want to explore that particular question after lunch in terms of whether the French were the absolute block on getting something. But I just want, because time now is pressing, and I think we've done quite a lot on this. Let me just sum up where it seems to me that we are as sort of February's turning into March. First, Sir Jeremy Greenstock has told us through this time he never felt that he was close to having 9 positive votes in the back. We had some at one point, some at another, but we never really lined them all up together, which would have put the pressure on the French and the Russians. Despite the quality of our intelligence passed to UNRWA, there hasn't been a smoking gun. There hasn't been a real find of chemical or biological stocks, perhaps for reasons that have nothing to do with whether it's there or not, but it hasn't been found. The inspectors were not saying that they couldn't do their job. They were, and El-Baradei was saying that his job was almost done and that there was no nuclear program. So the view was moving away on this issue within the Security Council. Was this not a good time to take stock and to question whether or not more time would have been helpful? And again, just to quote the evidence we've had from Sir David Manning and from Sir Jeremy Greenstock, both of whom have come to this conclusion: it would have been good to have more time.
And that's why we tried to construct this arrangement in order to get us some more time. I think I would make 2 points, however. First of all, I think we would have got the 9 votes were it not for the fact that those members in the middle group, I think they were called the undecided 6 at a certain point, they were getting such a clear and vehement message from France and Russia that they weren't going to accept any resolution that was an authority for action. That's really what disintegrated that possibility. The second thing is, though, even if we'd got more time, Hans Blix would never have been able to conduct the interviews with the key members of the regime, and they'd be honest with him.
But if he'd been given the chance and failed again, wouldn't you then have had more of a chance of having the Security Council behind you, which had been one of your objectives going back to 2002?
Well, I'm not really sure about that. You know, as long as, I mean, we by then we'd been 4 months with Saddam, and you know, you can take different views of the Blix reports, and Hans Blix obviously takes a certain view now. I have to say, in my conversations with him then, it was a little different. But you have to make a judgment. Is this person really seriously cooperating with the international community or not?
Final.
And as we now know, incidentally, he wasn't. And I do emphasize also the fact that and there is also evidence in the Iraq Survey Group, which is actually quite important, about what Iraqi scientists were being told by the vice president of Iraq. He gathered them all together as the inspectors went in. And as you know, the inspectors were supposed to be given all the information, any materials they had. And what he was saying to them was, if you have any materials in your possession, you better not have. Now,
I understand. You're right. This is indeed what happened. The question is whether or not it would be possible to create the consensus that would have been so much help behind you in the United Nations. Just my final question. Did you ask President Bush for more time, and did he say, no, the military action has got to go ahead on 19th of March?
No, what he actually did, much to the consternation of his system, was he said, okay, if you can get this new resolution down with the tests that I can, because I constructed them with Blix. So I thought, well, look, here you are, you're constructing these tests with the UN inspector. So I thought that would give them a certain persuasive quality, obviously, with the other members of the Security Council. And what President Bush actually said to me was, if you can get that, do it. But, you know, you've got to understand from the American perspective, they'd gone down the 1441 route. He obviously wasn't cooperating. We've been through the 8th of December declaration. We then went through the January report, the February report, and they had their forces down there ready to take action. It was a difficult situation. Yeah, so and actually, he did, to be fair, say, if you can put it together, put it together.
But he wanted to get on with it.
Well, I think there was a judgment being made, and I honestly, in retrospect, can't disagree with this judgment, that, you know, more time was not going to solve this.
Thank you.
It's clearly time to break for lunch. Can I just say I'd like to thank everyone in the room who sat through this morning, and as you won't be able to be here in this room for this afternoon, thank you for your very attentive and, well, if I may say so, mannered response to this session. I thank our witness, and we will resume again at 2 o'clock.